Before we start, I want you to understand something. This story might make you uncomfortable. It might make you angry. And if you have ever loved somebody who kept cutting you, it might even break your heart. But I need you to stay with me. Because this story is not only about pain, it is about hope. It is about healing. And it is about the kind of strength people don't see until the day you finally stand up and choose yourself. Her name was Grace. And for 10 long years, Grace believed one thing, that if she loved harder, prayed harder, endured harder, her husband would eventually change. She was wrong. Grace can tell you exactly when her marriage started breaking, because the honeymoon lasted only 6 months and 3 days. That day, she was in the kitchen, flour on her hands, making chin-chin the way her husband Chinedu liked it. Crispy outside, soft inside, small nutmeg scent. Then she saw his phone light up on the counter. She didn't plan to look, but the screen was facing up, and the words entered her eyes like fire. "Can't wait to see you tonight, baby. Wear that cologne I like." The message was from someone saved as blessing. Grace froze, not because she wanted to fight, but because her heart was trying to understand what her mind was refusing to accept. She wiped her hands, finished making the chin-chin, served dinner with a smile, and kept quiet. She waited until they were in bed and the lights were off. Then, in the smallest voice she could manage, Grace asked, "Chinedu, who is blessing?" Silence. The kind of silence that makes you feel like you are falling from a height. Then Chinedu answered, casually, almost bored, "Blessing? She's just my colleague. Why?" Grace swallowed. "I saw a message on your phone. She called you baby." Chinedu turned to face her. Even in the darkness, Grace felt the weight of his stare. "So now you are checking my phone?" "No, I wasn't checking. You just saw what you wanted to see. You are insecure, Grace, and insecurity is not attractive. Work on yourself." Do you know what Grace did? Grace apologized. Yes, inside a bedroom, with her heart beating like a drum in her chest, Grace apologized to her husband for catching him. And Chinedu rolled over and slept like a baby. 2 weeks later, Chinedu brought Blessing home, like it was nothing. "Grace, this is Blessing," he announced, cheerful, as if he was introducing a visitor for Christmas. "Her landlord is renovating her place. She needs somewhere for a couple of weeks. We have a guest room. You don't mind, right?" Grace looked at the woman standing in her living room with an overnight bag. That same woman, the one from the message. Grace's heart broke in the middle of the afternoon, but her voice still came out calm. "Of course, you are welcome, Blessing. Let me show you your room." Grace spread fresh bed sheets. She cooked enough food for 3. She smiled until her face hurt. That night, she couldn't sleep. At about 2 a.m., she heard footsteps. A door opened softly, floorboards creaked toward the master bedroom, then silence. Grace pulled her pillow over her head and prayed with pain in her throat. "God, please, change his heart. Make him see me. Make him love me like he promised." Blessing stayed 3 months. When she finally left, Grace convinced herself it was her prayers that chased her out. She started fasting twice a week, Bible every morning, gentle voice, soft attitude, favorite meals. She told herself, maybe the worst is over. It wasn't. Woman number 2 arrived when Grace was 7 months pregnant. Her belly was heavy, ankles swollen by evening, her back ached constantly. She was in the kitchen, trying to stand in a position that didn't hurt, when Chinedu walked in with a young woman Grace had never seen.
"Grace, this is Chisom. She'll be staying with us." No explanation, no shame, just a statement. Chisom looked Grace up and down, her eyes resting on the pregnancy, and smiled. Not a kind smile. "You look tired, Sister Grace," Chisom said sweetly. "Maybe that's why he needs somebody who can still take care of him properly." Grace gripped the counter so she wouldn't collapse. That night, she had her first contraction. The doctor called it stress and warned her, "Madam, you need calm for this baby." So Grace swallowed her tears and wore a smile like armor. 3 weeks later, at 2 a.m., her water broke. Chinedu wasn't home. She called him, shaking, in pain. He answered after many rings, voice sleepy. "What is it?" "The baby is coming. I need hospital now." There was a pause. Then he asked, as if she was disturbing him, "Can it wait till morning?" Grace bit her lips so hard she tasted blood. "No, babies don't wait." "Call a taxi. I'm far. I can't come back now." He cut the call. Grace gave birth to a baby boy at 6:47 a.m. with only a nurse holding her hand. When the baby was placed on her chest, tiny, warm, perfect, Grace wept. Not only from joy, but from a deep grief she couldn't even name. People asked about her husband. Grace smiled and lied, "He's walking." She became so good at protecting Chinedu's image that she didn't even notice she was doing it. Chinedu showed up 3 days later with flowers and business emergency excuses. He held the baby for barely 4 minutes, then handed him back. "I need to make some calls." Grace watched him walk out of the ward and wondered, is this my life now? Watching the man I love walk away over and over. By the time her son, Chimdi, turned 2, there had been 5 women, 5 different faces passing through Grace's home as if it was a hotel. Some stayed weeks, some stayed months. Grace learned how to become small, how to keep her head down, how to pray silently while cooking meals for the women sleeping with her husband. One afternoon, Grace finally broke. She went to meet her pastor's wife, Mami Efe, popular for wisdom and 40 years of marriage. Mami Efe sat in her sitting room, holding tea with shaking hands. "Mami, I don't know what to do again. My husband keeps bringing women home. Yesterday, one of them asked me to wash her clothes." Mami Efe stirred her tea slowly, then said, gentle but firm, "Grace, marriage is not easy. The enemy wants to destroy your home. You must not fail this test." Grace's throat tightened. "But Mami, I have been praying, fasting. I've tried everything." Mami Efe looked at her carefully. "Have you examined yourself? Maybe you are doing something wrong. The Bible says wives must submit. Are you still attractive to your husband, or you have relaxed? Are you satisfying him as a wife should?" Grace felt the words like slaps. She left that day feeling smaller than she arrived. So if pastor's wife said it was her fault, maybe it was. Grace tried Chinedu's mother. The older woman listened with folded arms, then shook her head. "My daughter, men are like that. Do you think you are special? My own husband had other women. I knew, but I stayed, endured, and today I am respected." Grace whispered, "Mama, he sometimes hits me." The mother replied without blinking, "Then don't provoke him. A wise woman knows when to talk and when to keep quiet. This is your cross. Carry it." Grace even tried her own mother. Her mother said, "You have a child now. Think of Chimdi. Every child deserves a father. Marriage is sacrifice." Everywhere Grace turned, the message was the same. Stay, endure, submit, pray harder, try more. No one said, "This is wrong." No one said, "You deserve peace." No one said, "Leave." If you've gotten to this point, thank you for staying with Grace's story. Please support this channel by liking, subscribing, and sharing this video so more people can learn from stories like this. Thank you. Now, let's continue. Woman number 6 arrived on Chimdi's 4th birthday. Grace had saved from her teaching salary for months to throw him a proper party. Cake, balloons, small chops, jollof rice, fried chicken, fruit punch, kids invited. Party started 2 p.m. At 3, Grace started calling Chinedu. No answer. At 4, she cut cake without him, holding her son's small hand while they blew candles together.
Then at 5:15, Chinedu walked in with a woman. "Grace, this is Adesewa," he announced loudly like master of ceremony. "She'll be staying with us. Clear the guest room tonight." People were still around. Grace's family, neighbors, a few guests. Silence entered the compound like a spirit. Nobody challenged Chinedu. They only began finding excuses to leave. Grace's father pulled her aside. "Don't cause scene. You are embarrassing yourself. Handle it inside." That night, after Chimdi slept, Grace locked herself in the bathroom, turned on the shower, and screamed until her voice finished. When she came out with swollen eyes and broken breath, Chinedu was waiting. "I need you to quit your job." Grace stared. "What?" "Your schoolwork. Quit." "But why? We need money." The slap came fast. Grace hit the floor. "Don't question me. You are always acting independent. A proper wife stays home and takes care of her husband." From the hallway, Grace heard her child crying. He saw it. Her 6-year-old son watched his father hit his mother. Grace touched her burning cheek and made the decision that felt safest, not wisest. "Okay," she whispered. "I will quit." She resigned the next day. No explanation. After that,
Grace had no income, no independence, no personal money. She used savings to buy food and keep the house running, while Chinedu always had money for new clothes, dinners, and women. Grace became a shadow. She stopped laughing, stopped singing, stopped having opinions. She stopped praying for Chinedu to change. Now she prayed small prayers. God, help me survive today, just today. Then woman number 8 arrived. Her name was Neka, and Neka was not like the others. The others behaved like visitors. Neka behaved like an owner. She looked at Grace's home like someone measuring for new curtains. "So you are the wife," Neka said with open disrespect. "Chinedu said you are traditional." Within 1 week, Neka moved into the master bedroom and told Grace to sleep in the guest room. Grace looked at Chinedu, waiting for him to defend her. He shrugged. "It's easier this way, less drama." Grace moved her things in silence. Neka threw out furniture Grace once bought with her own money, changed locks, sat at the head of the table, expected Grace to serve her first. And Grace did it, because leaving meant shame. Until the morning, Chinedu called Grace to the living room. He and Neka were drinking coffee. "Grace, sit." Grace sat, hands folded, eyes down. "I want you to leave," Chinedu said casually. "Take Chimdi and go. I don't need you here again." Grace raised her head. "This is my home. We are married." Chinedu leaned back, calm. "Can't I? Watch me." Grace refused to go. For 2 months she stayed, enduring insults, contempt, and her own fear. Then the landlord came. "Good morning. Is Mr. Chinedu home? Rent expired last month. He said he's not renewing." Grace felt the world tilt. "Not renewing? But we live here." The landlord looked uncomfortable. "Madame, he told me 3 months ago he's moving out. I assumed you knew." That evening, Grace confronted Chinedu. "The landlord said you're not renewing." Chinedu answered like it was nothing. "That's right. Neka and I found a new place. We're moving next week." The words hung in the air. Grace asked, voice shaking, "What about me? What about Chimdi?" Chinedu finally looked at her, and what Grace saw was worse than anger. It was nothing. Cold indifference. "That one is not my problem again." They moved out on a Friday morning. Chinedu, Neka, and everything, including furniture Grace bought years ago. Grace and Chimdi stood in an empty house. No chairs, no beds, no curtains, only echoes. Her 10-year marriage didn't end with lawyer. It ended with eviction and a man walking away without looking back. If you're still watching, thank you. Kindly support this channel by subscribing, liking, and sharing. Stories like this help people feel less alone. Thank you. Let's continue. Grace and Chimdi returned to the village with 2 bags. Everything else, clothes, photos, books, was gone. Her father's compound looked smaller than she remembered. The mango tree was still there, older, heavy with fruit nobody picked. Her father opened the door, saw her face, and stepped aside. No questions. Maybe he already knew. Grace returned to her old room, the one she left 10 years ago as a bride with hope. Now she returned like a ghost, with a 9-year-old child and shame choking her throat. For 3 months, Grace did nothing. She woke,
Fed Chimdi, sat under mango tree, stared into space. She prayed, "God, why? I did everything. I submitted. I fasted. I stayed. Why was I not enough?" The village people talked. Whispers followed her to the market. "That's the woman whose husband chased her after 10 years. She must have done something. I heard he had many women. Then she didn't satisfy him." Those words cut deeper than slap, because shame has no visible wound. Chimdi adapted quickly, played with other children, helped his grandfather on the small farm. Sometimes, Grace watched him laugh and wondered how such a small boy survived such a heavy house. But Grace couldn't adapt. She felt like a stranger inside her skin.
One evening, a car drove into the compound. Her sister, Ifeoma, stepped out. Ifeoma was different, unmarried at 38, successful in Lagos, living on her own terms. Family members pitied her like she was unfortunate. But as Grace watched Ifeoma walk in, head up, confident, Grace saw something. Freedom. "Grace," Ifeoma called, alarm in her voice. "What are you doing here?" Grace tried to smile. "I live here now." "Like hell you do." Ifeoma sat beside her. "I heard what happened. Why didn't you call me?" "What would I say? That I failed?" Ifeoma's voice sharpened. "You didn't fail. He failed. And everybody who told you to endure failed you too." Grace's tears came. "I don't know how to do anything again. I used to teach, but that was years ago. No money, no certifications. Who will hire me?" "Come to Lagos," Ifeoma said immediately. "You and Chimdi, stay with me." "I can't impose." "Grace, stop. For once, let somebody help you. Let somebody remind you that you are worth saving." Grace looked at her sister, everything people called unlucky, and realized something. Maybe the people giving her advice never truly understood life. Maybe walking away isn't disobedience to God. Maybe it is survival. "Okay," Grace whispered. "When?" "Saturday. Pack light." Lagos hit Grace like noise. Horns, vendors, generators, gospel music, people rushing. Ifeoma's apartment in Lekki was small but neat, clean and peaceful. To Grace, it felt like a palace. For 2 weeks, Grace slept and cried. 10 years of exhaustion landed on her body at once. She woke up at night panicking, thinking Chinedu was calling her. Then she remembered she was safe. No one would hit her. No one would parade women into her living room. Slowly, like a flower opening, Grace began to heal. One morning, on the balcony, Ifeoma said, "You need to start looking for work." Grace panicked. "I can't. I'm not ready." "You will fail at first. You will shake. You will doubt yourself, but you will keep trying." "How do you know?" Ifeoma looked at her deeply. "Because you survived 10 years with Chinedu. If you can survive that, you can do anything." The first interview was a disaster. The interviewer asked about her gap. Grace froze. Tears came. She ran out and cried in the parking lot. "I told you," Grace sobbed later. "I'm too broken." Ifeoma replied calmly, "You are not broken. You are healing. Healing is messy." Interviews came and went. By the 5th, Grace almost gave up. Then she saw Chimdi laughing in the kitchen, lighter than he ever was before. And Grace remembered she wasn't fighting only for herself anymore. She went for a 6th interview at a small logistics company in Ikeja. The woman interviewing her, Mrs. Adami, had kind eyes. "Grace, tell me about yourself." Grace reached the gap in her CV. Mrs. Adami asked gently, "From 2018 till now, can you explain?" Grace almost lied, but she was tired of lying. So Grace told the truth. "I was trying to save a marriage that didn't want to be saved. My husband was unfaithful many times. People told me to stay, submit, endure, so I did for 10 years. He made me quit my job. I stayed out of fear and shame until he threw me out." Mrs. Adami was quiet, then asked, "And now?" Grace swallowed. "Now, I'm trying to save myself." Mrs. Adami nodded once. "You start Monday, 8 a.m. Don't be late." Grace didn't even understand at first, but it was real. The job was hers. Grace worked hard. She learned again. She improved. 3 months later, the company needed a proposal pitch. Mrs. Adami looked at Grace and said, "You've been watching how we do bids. Can you handle this one?" Grace's first instinct was to shrink, but something inside her rose. "Yes," she said, "I can do it." She worked on it for 2 weeks. The day of the pitch, Grace entered that boardroom shaking. But when she started speaking, her voice steadied. She answered questions. She defended the numbers. She presented with confidence. 10 days later, they won a 5 million naira contract. Mrs. Adami commuted her. Grace went home that day feeling surreal, like she stepped into a new life.
If Grace's journey is touching you, please take a second to like, subscribe, and share this video. It helps more people find stories that can heal them. Thank you. Over the next year, Grace rose. More contracts, bigger deals, growth. She rented her own 2-bedroom apartment, small but hers. She cried in the empty living room because for the first time, she owned her peace. Chimdi entered a better school, began to thrive. Grace bought her first car, used but reliable. Windows down, gospel music loud, driving herself like a free woman.
She changed church too, one that preached love without using it to trap women in suffering. She made friends, real friends, and she realized there are many women like her, scarred, ashamed, asking quietly, why did nobody tell us we could leave? But even with her success, Grace still had fear inside. Men approached her, church, work, school meetings, but each time, Grace felt panic. What if she chose wrong again? Then Efioma called one day. There's someone I want you to meet. Grace protested. I'm not ready. Just coffee, 1 hour. If you hate it, I won't talk about it again. Grace agreed. They met at a cafe in Victoria Island. His name was Amechi, a widower, father of 2, kind eyes, calm presence. They talked for 3 hours, not romance, life, pain, healing. Grace told him the truth. I'm scared of choosing wrong again. Amechi nodded. You can't know. That's why you must have faith, not only in a person, but in yourself. That if somebody shows you who they are, you'll believe them, and you'll walk away. They started slowly, carefully. Amechi Chimdi played football with him without forcing closeness. Grace met Amechi's daughters, Zainab and Amara, careful children who didn't want replacement. Grace didn't force motherhood. She simply showed kindness and respect. Trust began to grow. But Grace still pulled back sometimes, until Amechi asked one night, Grace, what are we doing? Because anytime I get close, you pull away. Grace's voice broke. I don't know how to trust. Chinedu promised before God and still destroyed me. How do I know you won't? Amechi replied gently, you don't know, but you can trust yourself that if it's wrong, you will leave. Don't let Chinedu win twice. He took 10 years. Don't let him take your future by fear. That night, Grace prayed differently. God, help me trust myself. Help me accept joy without waiting for punishment. Then one day, Grace's phone rang. Unknown number. She picked. Hello, Grace. It's Chinedu. The world tilted. Grace sat down hard. Why are you calling me? Chinedu sounded tired. I wanted to check on you and Chimdi. Rage rose. You don't get to ask about Chimdi. You threw us away. I know I hurt you, but things didn't work out with Nenka and the others. I've been alone. Maybe we can try again. Grace cut him off. No. Grace, please hear me. Grace laughed. Not a funny laugh, a sharp one. You have changed? Which of the 8 women helped you change? Blessing, Chisum, Adesawa, Nenka, or the ones I've forgotten? That's not fair. Fair? You want to talk about fair. You humiliated me. You controlled me. You made me quit my job. You used my money and spent yours on women. You threw me and your son out. Now you want to talk about fair? I was under pressure. I don't care. And Grace realized she truly meant it. I don't care if you're lonely. I don't care if you regret. You are not my problem anymore. So 10 years meant nothing? Grace replied calmly. 10 years meant nothing to you. I was the one who stayed, and you threw me away. So yes, goodbye. Grace ended the call, hands shaking, heart pounding, but underneath, relief, because she said no, and the world didn't end. It continued. That night, Grace sat at her table with Amechi, Chimdi, and the girls, crowded, noisy, laughing, food passing. Grace looked around and felt it. Peace. Not absence of pain, but presence of joy despite the pain. 3 years later, Grace stood in front of a mirror in a navy blue suit, leading the biggest pitch of her career, a government contract worth 50 million naira. She delivered the presentation flawlessly. They won. She returned home to a real home, not shame, not fear. Emechi and Grace had married quietly, a safe marriage, partnership, respect. Chimdi was 14, dreaming of engineering. Grace entered the house. "Mom, how did it go?" Grace smiled. "We got it. 50 million. Celebration erupted. Later that night, Emechi and Grace sat on the porch. "Do you think about Chinedu?" Emechi asked. "Sometimes," Grace said. "Not like before. I used to pray he'd change. Now I pray he finds peace, but he no longer defines me." Emechi squeezed her hand. "I'm proud of you." Grace smiled. "I'm proud of me, too." Because Grace learned a truth many people don't want to say out loud. Love is not enough when it is only flowing in one direction. You cannot submit your way into safety. You cannot pray someone into respecting you. And sometimes, the most faithful thing you can do is save yourself. Grace spent 10 years trying to be enough for a man who never valued her. Then she spent 5 years learning to be enough for herself. And that changed everything. If this story touched you, if you see yourself in it, or you know someone who needs it, please share it. Because another Grace out there thinks she is alone, and she needs to know this. You are not too broken to be rebuilt. Leaving what is destroying you is not failure. It is waking up. Thanks for watching.